Hey guys, what is up? Swim here, and we're back for Meta Mondays. So we are going to be going through every week and just talking about the meta, how it's changed, what are new deck lists, and what might not be as good of an idea to run anymore, right? Card games are extremely meta-based. Everyone's always asking, what's the best deck, right? That's the most common question. Well, it changes from week to week because different decks are going to beat other decks. Everything has like a sort of like rock, paper, scissors relationship. So it will be wildly fluctuating, and it's important to keep up to date. This will be the last week that I am just doing basically something that is fairly opinion-based. I want to make that clear. What is about to follow in this video is basically my own opinions, right? What I want to do in the future, and this is going to be, I can't promise anything, but hopefully starting next week, I will have data from working with Mobalytics, and we will be able to break down very precisely, what the data shows is good, how to potentially interpret, so and so being very popular, and it will be a lot less opinion-based. Now, I always keep up to date. I'm talking with a lot of other high-level players every single day, basically just trying to get reads on the meta, but at the end of the day, I am not happy with, this forced opinion-based approach. I would be much happier next week, fingers crossed, if we can, move to a much more data structured kind of thing where I'm actually able to talk about what decks are just smashing and match up win rates as well. So let's go ahead and get into what's different this week. All right, so let me go ahead and pull up my site real quick. So as we can see, this is my own deck lists, right? These are basically where I would rank things right now. And effectively, this week was dominated early on by, the appearance of these elusive decks. Most notably, there's a couple different variants, but the biggest of which is going to be probably the Demacia and Freljord versions of the deck. And you'll be able to find them here, but effectively, and these are the versions that I would probably recommend out of the two. This one from Freljord is by Mago GX, and the one from Demacia is my own. And basically, the idea behind this is, you have a bunch of elusive units, and you just, shove it in your opponent, they can't block. And this has kind of been like the pace setter of the entire week. Right, we've had Spiders as a deck that has sort of come up, rising in popularity as the first person who hit Masters was running a Spiders variant, and this is the Spiders variant that I would recommend as well. A pretty big thing about this list is we are effectively using a lot of fearsome units, as well as Trifarian Glory Seeker to control the board and trade off. This is a bit of a new one, and I really do personally like this Spiders variant the most. The Wraith Colors in particular, even though they've got not the highest proc rate in the world, it's pretty close to 2/3 chance. The ability to hit the board, even just every once in a while, even if you're getting unlucky, like a 4/4 3 fearsome with a 2/2 fearsome is just great. And you want to time your skitterers so that the minus attack is going to effectively stop the blockers, right? Fearsome is very, very, very powerful to go all in within aggro. And this is also why we've cut Legion Rearguard, because the whole point of Fearsome is you want to basically be able to stop your opponent's blockers from getting value. And then Rearguard, because he doesn't have Fearsome, but he's an attacker, just ends up getting trump blocked by things that can't block anything else anyway, so there's no real point in running Rearguard. In this case, we've got Ladros as kind of just a singleton for the control mirror win condition effectively, but you can replace it with Captain Ferran as well. Here it's Ladros partially for just having Wraith color odds, and the cards represent pretty similar roles. So that's the Spider list. Another neat list that has been catching on is the Fiora Shaper combo list. Now, this is my version of the concept, but this is based on the version by Tides of Time, who hit Masters with it. And basically, the idea behind this is you just run either Fiora or River Shaper. You are going to skip around a couple turns, and then it'll get a really big standalone, right? Sometimes multiple standalones, and effectively just keep your card alive and buff it over and over again. There's a lot of different buff targets. You can just buff Lifeblade for the same way. And there's a lot of cute ways to play this out, but effectively it is a very, very high skill combo deck that will win under pretty unique conditions. You will have a lot more of a chance of, being able to finish the game with Fiora, for example, just because this deck runs a lot of support cards for her. It's much more of an all-in Fiora deck, right? And this is probably the best if you want to play a Fiora deck that's like all in on the win condition. You're not going to win with Fiora every game with this deck. Sometimes you'll win with like just a big River Shaper or just a big Kinko Lifeblade, but I will say this deck does win with Fiora a lot. You got a ton of support, and you've got 2 Judgments as well in this particular version that is going to be doing very well for you. So I think that this is personally one of my favorite decks to play in the entire game. It's very, very, very fun and very, very, very skill testing at the same time. You have to play every matchup completely differently, and I'd recommend it for anyone who, you know, might want to challenge, or that sounds like a good thing for. Obviously, we're running Deny because, you know, what a great card this is. I will say one thing about this list is, you know, it's important to note this list often does get carried by Elusives at the end of the day. A lot of the times, your win condition, you know, you'll draw a lot with River Shaper. You'll force a high value exchange with Fiora, like they'll have to go out of their way to kill it. But a lot of the times, your end game state just ends up being like a buffed Lifeblade slapping them in the face or something like that. So if Elusives or, you know, Lifeblade in particular, if something gets a nerf there, this deck will absolutely feel that. But the real thing that's different this week is P&Z is starting to get a lot more attention. There has been a lot of basically people using it as like a stall combo thing. I saw a comment in the Meta Monday I did last week basically saying, you know, it's kind of silly because I did say, you know, at the end of the week, last week, P&Z, it didn't look like it was getting a lot of attention. Not many people were running it. You could run it in aggro, etc., and it didn't really feel like it had a home. Well, there was a comment saying that was a little silly to say, and yeah, preemptively it was. This is basically just a like meta report, and it turns out that P&Z is definitely something that a lot of people are eyeing more and more. It's difficult to say exactly like what the better ways of playing this are, but there's been a lot of control decks that have been running P&Z to try to effectively get an edge with Heimerdinger and Ezreal. So this is going to be one such deck, and this is going to be Hyped's version of Heimerdinger Control as well, which is a pretty good deck. So you're running Heimerdinger, in this case Ezreal, and basically we're just sitting back playing all of our spells. This one runs 28 spells, and you're gonna be able to just kind of like play super reactively. Once you get the Heimerdinger down, you want to make sure try to keep it alive and just get the engine going. That's going to effectively just win you the game if you can just stay alive and keep casting spells, right? With Ezreal to potentially close out games as a finisher, right? This is one such P&Z deck. And there are, like I said, everyone has different versions. There's versions for like Shadow Isles, there's versions for Ionia, but it's definitely P&Z is getting a lot of attention here in its capacity as like a control deck. Not a lot of people playing P&Z aggro. There is still some like discard aggro going around like P&Z Noxus, but it's kind of falling into its own as a control archetype. Now, I personally have made a deck here. This is my EZ deck. And basically, the idea behind this is it is a all-in Ezreal deck. I actually played this all day today. I say today, I'm recording this on Sunday. But basically, it's a deck that I think is going to end up being very powerful. Now, I can't necessarily say that Freljord is the best second color for this kind of concept. It might be Shadow Isles. But I do actually believe that a refined version of this list, well piloted, again, I don't know what the best second color is, but the best like control P&Z concept will likely end up being tier 1. At least for a while until things shift, who knows. But basically, this is a deck that I think has a ton of potential. The idea is just stall, cycle, combo, control, right? So you are going to be using just like your early game stall tools, killing opponents' units, freezing opponents' units, and then drawing a bunch of cards with 3 progress days, Avaros and Sentry, 2 remages. I know 3 progress days seems insane. I know it does, but trust me, it's like this is how the deck wants to play. And basically, you're just going to be outlasting your opponent. Once Ezreal flips, you will often just be winning the game on the spot, depending on what your hand state is. I will say, the most important thing with Ezreal decks, do not play him until he's leveled up. The entire idea behind this card is it's just a control deck. You want to keep him safe in your hand. Once he has the 8 targets and he'll level up, you play him, he'll have 4 health, and then when they go to kill him, you can just basically end the game by playing your spells out, which will resolve first, right? Especially all of the burst speed spells. The mushroom package with Clump of Wumps and Chump Wump is really important for having some discard targets for Rummage as well as Get Excited, but also you can just use the mushrooms to combo with your Ezreal. At the end of the game, the 1 mana burst spells will just start doing an obscene amount of damage to your opponent's Nexus once Ezreal has met his flip condition, which, if you don't know, I should have explained this before, allows you to deal 2 damage to the Nexus every time you cast a spell. And that's basically it. I'm going to be trying a Shadow Isles version of this Ezreal concept instead of running Freljord, running Shadow Isles. I'm going to be trying a version of this tomorrow, or I guess today if you're watching this on Monday. And maybe I'll decide that it could be a bit better. I'm not sure. We'll see. But all I know for sure is I do personally think that a refined, well-piloted version of PNZ Control will make it into Tier 1, at the very least, for a while. And that is basically the biggest changes that are happening this week, right? We are seeing PNZ on the rise. Spiders went up and then kind of fell down a little bit as they started getting more and more countered. Spiders and Elusives both achieved like that kind of like early stage dominance, but have also been getting more and more countered. So we're hitting, a little bit of an equilibrium in that way. And that's it. That's basically the end of this week's report. Now, like I say, hopefully we will have the better system in place next week. We'll have the data, and we'll be able to not just have, a kind of like opinionated, this is what I think is good, this is what I would recommend. Because I don't want to just do my personal recommendations. I want, maybe I want that to be part of it, and I'll be very clear about which part is opinion and which part is, very kind of data-based and what like everyone agrees on. But I don't want that to be the whole video. That's not my idea for this series whatsoever. So if you want to, until then, you can go ahead and feel free to check out this page. This is from swimstream.com, where I have a bunch of like helpful Runeterra tools. This is the decks page for it, basically, where I list a bunch of decks, describe them, talk about like what tier, and I'm changing this daily as well. Like I said, the most important thing is that metas are changing every single day. Everyone's always asking me what's good, and right now it's super in flux, right? If you want to know what's good, you're gonna have to stay up to date with the opinions that change every single day based on the ladders that's changing, right? Because like one good deck gets popular, well suddenly the deck that it counters gets a lot worse, the deck that counters it gets a lot better, right? Like everything is always just like really rapidly changing every single day. All right, anyway, that is going to be it for me today, and I will see you guys next week.